Many people have asked me, Theory, what happened to the Andariel and Duriel bugs? Were the Metamorphosis restriction states implemented differently from PTR? And now that terrorized zones have come to single player, was Mephisto updated client-side? Stay a while and listen as I discuss these updates now that 2.6 and Season 3 are officially in the wild. In my previous Season 2 Mephisto video, we highlighted Pavk's bug discovery to Pez. As a refresher, Mephisto's Terror Zone drops were static and restricted to Desecrated A, blocking players from acquiring better loot. After the 22 Nights of Terror in Season 2 concluded, we noticed something unusual which indicated a possible server-side silent patch fixing Mephisto. We were finally, for the first time in Season 2, triggering items to drop from Treasure Class 81 and above, validating with evidence that he was now correctly upgrading. Unfortunately, with the release of Season 3 and patch 2.6, it seems that Mephisto is once again broken as he is not properly upgrading when terrorized. Myself, Shadow, Xhul, and Zax have completed well over 200 plus runs across ladder and non-ladder, and not a single one of us have found any item above Treasure Class 78. This is of course unusual because his standard treasure class caps at 78, and we know that with the restriction to the Desecrated A issue, that also only pulls from 78 and not above. Now, while I understand that RNG is RNG, it is statistically highly improbable that we would not have found at least a singular white or magic item from 81, 84, or 87. I also happen to probe the Discord Sanctuary community, and many others have also openly shared their observations and feedback that they also are seeing restrictions to 78, so there seems to be a very consistent theme here with testing and observations in Season 3. Now, our best educating guess and hypothesis is that whatever they did on the server side with a silent patch fix in 2.5, they clearly overwrote that with something in 2.6 updates. So hopefully Pez and the Blizzard developers get their hands on this. They can maybe do some type of hotfix, as this is brutal for single and offline game players, as they are ultimately also restricted to TC78, and they should see that changed. Remember the Metamorphosis restrict state issues we called out in PTR 2.6 ahead of Season 3? The most common question I've received recently is how, if any, has this been adjusted? Well, fortunately, we finally have the answer. I officially tested this online in a diadem with my assassin leveraging Beast Runeword. As you can see, with the Mark of the Bear active, I can recast bow in human form and lay traps, which is a non-base normal attack. Both of these mechanics were previously restricted in PTR testing. Worth noting that I did also have a friend test this on his Shapeshifter Druid, and he observed the same. So what does this all mean? Well, we now have an absolute PvP monster in the form of the pre-buff king Metamorphosis. Because Blizzard literally went go for broke and outright removed the entirety of the restrict states, that means that any character, including the Druid, can trigger these marked states, especially in the Bloodmoor. If we think about the new king being the Barbarian, he has the unique ability to translate both buffs because he can rock Wolf Howl, which is a Barbarian-only helm, and trigger both Mark of the Bear and Mark of the Wolf. If we also think about a Wind Druid here for a second, if you are a Wind Druid with teleportation via Enigma, and you can also trigger both states, getting yourself elevated life and elevated physical damage reduction, you are going to be very dangerous and lethal in the Bloodmoor. Now, while yes, these can both apply in a PVM perspective, I actually think that most are going to take advantage of this more specifically in the PvP realm and landscape. Now, who knows if they intend to change these, but again, closing the loop on this was another heavy-handed video that I was getting a lot of questions on because of my initial one that I brought attention to the restrict states and PTR. And like we said, and as we showed in the video with the Assassin, and thank you to VT Matt for testing on the Druid, it looks like Metamorphosis is officially unleashed. One of the more polarizing discoveries from Season 2 and patch 2.5 revolved around the Legacy Andariel bug. With the release of Diablo 2 Resurrected, Blizzard adjusted her drops to be permanent quest loot. Still, this modification triggered a future unintended consequence by overriding and handicapping her Terror Zone loot upgrading. When the 2.6 final patch notes were released ahead of Season 3, we noticed an exciting highlight indicating that the Andariel quest bug was possibly resolved. So now that the 2.6 patch is in the wild, what actually changed? Well, Sanctuary, we can all collectively rejoice as I am here to officially report that Andariel is indeed fixed. For those that watched my previous video, you had to non-bug her to ensure that you were properly treasure class upgrading, and that is now completely mitigated and resolved. That means that when you slay her for the first quest experience on offline gameplay or any future season, you can immediately slay her, talk to Warv, and head to Act 2. You no longer have to worry about whether you bugged or not bugged her. The other exciting thing to report out of this is that that this change is retroactive. That means if you are a non-ladder player or you are a single player who already bugged her by mistake, you no longer have to worry about creating newer characters because they completely resolved it. Everybody's in the clear here. So again, as a reminder, don't worry about bugging or not bugging. Andy is going to properly terrorized upgrade when you start farming her. Now, this also opened up an interesting angle having to do with Duriel, who also had somewhat of a permanent quest glitch. I feel that many people weren't aware of it, and there were some interesting behaviors and changes that we also saw with him. Let's jump right in to Duriel. The way to previously permanently glitch Duriel was a standard component of G-rushing unbeknownst to most of the rushies. To trigger this, you first entered Talrash's tomb and input the Herodic Staff into the orifice. Then, instead of waiting and going into Duriel's chamber, return to town. Once the rusher kills Duriel, you will notice that your quest can no longer be completed. However, the rusher will send a town portal right next to Tyrael. Upon entering and speaking with Tyrael, your quest is completed and you can now continue to Act 3. This is how you triggered the Duriel permanent glitch, guaranteeing quest loot drops. Similar to Andariel, and as of 2.6, the Duriel permanent glitch is now also remedied and fixed. A big shout out to Xhul, as he is the one that first discovered this, tested it, and reported it to me. So a big thank you for bringing this to the surface to the community. Now, it's interesting because both the Andariel and the Duriel glitches were obviously somewhat similar but different in their own passive respects. But again, Duriel is now also retroactively fixed, just like Andariel. So if you had a non-ladder character who had gone through that permanent glitch sequencing, that is also fixed. Now, what's interesting about Duriel is that most people didn't realize that if you went through that permanent glitch sequence, it had the similar effects where it was actually handicapping Duriel when you were trying to upgrade when terrorized. It was the exact same implementation challenge with Andariel if you happened to bug her mistakenly. So even though people wanted to get that quest loot and manipulate that at Duriel, it actually was hurting you from scaling. So there's a give and take on this change. Obviously, you no longer are getting permanent quest loot anymore, but you at least have the ability to upgrade Duriel when Talrash's tombs are terrorized, which gives you the ability to finally upgrade and get that better loot.